All right, I think we will go ahead and get started. Thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. Welcome to this month's Boomerang Labs webinar on mastering brand and digital strategies to grow a circular economy business. We are joined this morning by Rico Digital Creative Director and Boomerang Labs alum, Danling Zhao, who will be offering her insights on how circular economy businesses can set themselves apart from the competition and appeal to different audiences. Um, but first, as Boomerang Labs communications manager, I literally wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you a bit more about Boomerang and this series. So we are Australia's first startup accelerator specifically for circular economy founders. And while most of our programs are more intensive, we wanted to have these free webinars to provide learning opportunities on different topics of interest. So next month for our June webinar, we'll be discussing founder resilience and creating healthy culture from day one with founder and startup coach James Crowther on the 20th of June. So you can check out our events page on our website. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram, subscribe to our monthly e-newsletter to get all of the latest from us. And we do also have those more in-depth programs for startups at all stages. So please do check out our website if you're interested in those or if you know someone who might be. I am joining this morning from Gunditjmara country, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we all live and work, and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And now I am going to turn it over to Donlene.
Hi, everyone. I'm just sharing my screen with you for a sec. So hi, everyone. My name is Dan Ling. I'm the co-founder at Rico Digital. And so thank you, Alison and Katie, for having me today. First of all, as well, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are all at today. I am in Gadigal country, and we pay our respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. And I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. At Rico Digital, we focus on helping other small businesses and government organizations to create positive impact. I've been in the industry for more than 15 years. It is not a super long time, but it is long enough to observe this incredible transition to digitalization in design and marketing industry. So we've worked with both large and small businesses, as well as the governments. Our work has also been featured in many media in the world. So every now and then we come up with these sort of interesting projects, and we sort of go out to the media and we pitch for features, and that's sort of how we got into a lot of global media in the past 10 years. We collaborate with two key audiences. One is small businesses and the other is the government. So for small businesses, we provide full services from strategy, design, web development to digital marketing. While with the government, we focus on design and communication for their sustainability and future-driven projects. So we've been working, for example, with the City of Sydney for almost a decade. To be very relevant, during the pandemic, we also launched a circular economy experiments, Rico Refill, and we are a very proud Boomerang Labs alumni that I just keep telling everyone how great these guys are, and which is true because Katie and Anna before helped us just elevate this whole brand and the work we do in literally the next level. And so Rico Refill's mission was to reimagine packaging for a cleaner world, one refill at a time. So we aim to work with local brands, package their products in our reusable jars, deliver them to the customers in Sydney, and then we collect the empty jars, come back to our local facility and get them ready for the next refill. So our goal was to create this beautiful, easy user experience to help people reuse, but also help brands to build the sort of localized refill system. In the meanwhile, everyone can work together to reduce plastic waste. We basically created everything from scratch, from research, marketing strategy, user experience, design, and all the ongoing work to grow the brand. And as you know, if you have gone through the Boomerang Labs Accelerator, we do a lot of presentations. So this was one of the things that we've worked on is to come up with strategy, content, and pitch deck for different segments of the audience. The other thing I would like to mention is our Circular Sydney project, which was designed as a content marketing tool to support the refill service, and by raising awareness and innovation for the circular economy. So the project was funded by the City of Sydney. It involved 40 innovators and industry leaders in Sydney. And this basically not just focusing specifically on the circular economy industry, but also like from the First Nations people, elders to policymakers. And so there's this basically the whole circle of people and things that coming through for the topic, because essentially the circular economy is about the whole system. And it was also an experiment on seeing how we can use AI softwares in content marketing. And so using AI and working with people. So we had about like 10 editors and designers, and we just put all these things together in 3 months, which was very, very intense. I highly recommend you to read it, because the knowledge and the wisdom that's shared is so rich and honest. With all that mentioned, all I want to say is that circular businesses have a lot more challenges in communication and marketing compared to many other small businesses. You basically have to face your customers, but also all levels of stakeholders, even your suppliers, because you need to explain why you do things this way, and why you should be even bothered to help me. And on top of everything is the external competitors from conventional businesses, be it big or small. Like basically, technically, we were competing with Woolworth in a way, because our customers actually some of them end up going back to Woolworth, because it was so hard to order the products to their door. And so what I have learned from running the service is that for the internal communication, you want to focus on creating that values and communicating your value creation for each audience segment. So basically, you can't really use whatever you communicate with your customers and talk to your government partners, because everyone has a different goal and different things they want to achieve. And externally with competitors is that I find with the internet, there's just so much digital insight data that you can learn from. And that's something that I would like to also tap into later at the end. For today, I will focus on the brand to customers segment, be it like B2B or B2C. There are 3 tips I would like to share. And this can apply to other audience segments as well. So the first one is gaining clarity. And the reason why this is important is because there's so many noises in the world right now. And when we're so much in the business, especially in innovation, sometimes like the essence of who we are, what we do can be overlooked even by ourselves. So before starting a project, we usually sit down with our clients to go through what they have in their mind, what is going on in their business. So we extract those data from their internal system, their customer research, Google Analytics, web data, to give them an overview of where they are at. Because a lot of business owners, I find, is that they're not even aware of those data, because those ones are actually telling you what you should what decision you should make, and what you must change to align your short-term goals. And what I find quite interesting is that businesses who are in the impact-driven space, they show a lot bigger and much stronger vision for the future. And for us, I can speak for your audience, is that you need to communicate those vision, because that is what makes us so proud of being part of your project, and also being part of, to support you to grow your business as well. So in terms of clarity today, I would like to ask you 3 questions. Is that number 1, who are your top 2 customers who are the most aligned with your business goals? So when we were running our refill service, even though we had researched about 3 months of our customers, we actually started as broad as possible to find out our ideal customers. And that is through like the local media feature, Facebook ads, which help us to reach a much broader demographics and backgrounds. And then as the business is designed for the refill, the returning customers, we figure out that it was too costly for the ones that are not returning. And so we basically observe who returned, who drop out, who cost more to acquire, or what channels were the most effective for us to acquire these ideal customers. And then we went really hard on getting these ideal customers and basically drop the ones that are less aligned with our business goals. And those ones I can honestly say, which is a little sad, but I guess like there's something that we were still trying to figure out as well, is that the people who are aged 30 plus shows a lot more commitment and consistency when it comes to dealing with our type of service. While the ones that are in the sort of younger generation, they tend to almost like buying with the hype and then they drop out. So I don't know if this actually sort of can be reflected in other businesses as well, but that was one of the things that we found out. So you have to talk to your customers. And I find with a lot of businesses, they don't actually talk deeply with their customers. You want to know who they are, what they do, what's their dream, what's their pain points. And that said, it's not really about this cold sort of approach. It's really just with the best intention and the biggest heart. It's really, for me, for us, was really about building that connection with our local community. And usually you can find those areas for growth as you talk. The second question for you is what is this one superpower your business have? And all you need is just one. So, and everything you do, you want to be around this superpower so that people remember you for that. And same as like the media, they can talk about you just for that. And this is how you do it. You talk to your customers, ask them what they love about your business. And the more you talk to them, you will actually find a pattern. And then you can distill everything into this one superpower. And that can be your unique value proposition. And write down in one clear statement. And then you want to create 3 segments to prove these statements. Usually, you want to find out all these 3 segments from your audience, from your customer feedback as well. Because this is literally, a brand is not really how you think a brand should be. It's more how your customers perceive you. And that is basically how everyone looks at you. And my last question for you is that what is this one word you want to own in the market? And if I could share some examples, here's some very super powerful one. Zoom that we're using now is video communication. Tesla, everyone associated with just EV. ChatGPT is an AI language model, but everyone talks about it being an AI. And Apple is obviously innovation. And on the local level, we have Recycle Smart. I've heard so many people thinking that they're doing recycling, but they've achieved amazing communication with their customers. And who gives a crap? Sustainable toilet paper, Keep Cup, reusable coffee cups. And virtual is everyone who wants to do equity fund crowdfunding, they just go to virtual. So this word can be found from your unique value proposition statement. And you want to come up with this keyword just like so simple that people can associate you with. And you want to thread it through your product, your user experience, your branding, your content, media, everything. And the more you do, the more you can actually establish this brand very quickly in the market. My last tip for you in this chapter is how to gain clarity. And I find with deep breathing exercise every day can help you let go a lot of blockage and welcome new ideas. And there's a lot of tutorial in YouTube I will not demonstrate today. And I think practically data is always key. And you want to get those data to really understand where you are at and how can you grow. The other thing is talk to your team who are really in the forefront with your customers because they know the biggest insights of your customers and your markets. Talk to your customers, your mentors, and your advisors, but don't get carried away by so many different opinions because at the end of the day, it's your own thing and your own gut feeling that you should be able to sort of distill everything to the biggest clarity so that you can sort of use that to implement in other places. And lastly, it is recommended to speak to a marketing specialist because, and you want to go for the ones who are aligned with your goals and help you bring those clarity out to the world. The second is lower the barriers to change. And this is a very honest opinion because I just think we all want to be good citizens, but change is very hard, especially with the circular economy. You are not just asking for behavioral change, you're actually asking this whole system to change. And without, it's a chicken and egg thing. And which one is going to actually come forward to make those change? And that basically there's a lot of resistance. So this is one tip for you is to make it feel like, look like, sound like a product and service your customers are already familiar with. And we look at you want to further segment your customers based on their awareness of the problem and your solution. So you want to go deep into what they are thinking, what they're experiencing, and come up with a strategy to lower those barriers to change. And this is not, again, what I like to come from a place of empathy and understanding of people, rather than just like, okay, this is a very, cold logical strategy that we need to tap into. It's more so about, just purely a human connection. And then coming from a place where understanding what they're experiencing, how they are trying to overcome their barriers, and how can you help them to feel better? So when we design Rico, here's some tricks that I would like to share with you is that we literally just came up with this design for our brand because I come from the branding and sort of marketing background. I actually spent with this particular service, I want it to be out to the world as soon as we can. So instead of coming up something like really, really fresh and unique, I go like, how can I actually create that instant familiarity with the market? And interestingly, I went to Uniqlo that day and I go, oh, this logo looks good. I'm just gonna put the Rico name in there and, add a recycling symbol. And what is funny is that, and also the packaging as well, is we sort of took inspiration from Aesop and you just put it really nicely together. It took me very, very short time. And that saying is that it's not so much about finding shortcuts or anything. It's really comes underpinned by strategy. Is that how can I cut through the market as soon as I can? And what we have done here is that we basically wrap up this something that is very familiar with the people already. So wherever we go, people come to me and say, hey, I have seen your brand before. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that because even though some people have not seen it, they just make assumption that this is very familiar with me. And same comes down to the audience as well, is that we profile our customers to our top two values, customers, and one of them is the sort of inner city moms, and that's why we use pictures of people who can associate them with already. And the other thing I'm very impressed with Recycle Smart's communication. I suggest everyone to look into them and study them as well, because their language use, they make things so simple and easy to read. In terms of, recycling made as easy as ordering a pizza. That's just so smart. And their bright identity, whenever you are in an apartment building, you see that pink bag, you know that Recycle Smart, someone is using it. And then the image of their team is also very aligned with their sort of customers. And this gives a lot of like people that kind of like approachable way of talking about the circular economy. And guess what? They don't even talk about the circular economy. They just go, here we are at your service. So how to conclude this section is that how to lower that barriers to change. And I suggest is that tap into all these senses. Visual is very important because that's how people can remember you the most. But that goes much deeper in with the digital media now, with all the reels and content. It's all about the movement, the sounds, your voice, the way you make people feel, and even make them dream as well. So use simple language that people can easily understand. Don't use jargon unless you want to explain. You can explain something very easily and quickly, and share it consistently, and make it a thing that associate with your brand and that people can remember. And lastly, just make them feel good. My last tip for you is on your passion. And this is one of, apart from the impact and everything with circular businesses, I do think that this feel-good factor can attract a lot of opportunities. So you want to turn that into your competitive edge. And these opportunities we're talking about, customer loyalty, media attention, government grants, ESG, corporate partnerships, crowdfunding opportunities. So when we were doing Rico, we had about 80% refill rate just in Sydney. It's like literally just in the inner city and the inner west and the eastern suburb where we deliver to. And we were supported by many change makers in Sydney. We had ongoing media opportunities. We were featured in quite a lot of places, including the Wentworth Courier, Mossman Daily, North Shore Time, on their front cover without us even knowing. We had 2 government grants, and we even were talking about partnerships with Airbnb and ESOP. So what we did was that we weave in this storytelling into the whole service. And this is, me and my partner, Annette, and also my co-founder. We are a couple living in the inner city suburb in Sydney. We live a conscious life. We love our community and we love the environment. And so we started this venture to make a change for the community. And that is a really beautiful story on its own, which is also completely true. And that basically goes out to our customers, to the media, and to what I'm trying to say is that to cut through the market, you need a visual element that people can remember you with. So it is not talking about, fancy design or anything. Is that we use ourselves as basically the brand ambassadors and our beautiful jars that people can remember with. So within a short time, we were walking basically on the street and people told us that, hey, I have seen you before and I remember you and I'm going to order your product soon. And then we ended up having a chat, making connection with them and asked for their feedback. And also like just having the media attention was also a really great plus in a way to raise awareness for the brand. So what I'm trying to say is that these are all super great opportunities that a circular business can tap into if everything was done right, because there is a really great interest from the public at the moment. So how do you express this competitive edge? Again, keep it very, very simple and focus on just one key statement. So everything you say, either to your customers or to the media or to your investors, is that you want to have these key statements, and all content should be serving for that purpose, because you only have this so much time and energy to actually get it out to the world. And with environmental content, I find there's a lot of negative things to say, which is true, sadly. But for business, you want people to remember the good things about you and also inspire them to take action. And again, I think that visual clue and visual element, you need to find that distinctive element about your brand that you can actually get it out to the world. And lastly, again, it's always important, also if budget allows, is to engage marketing specialists and PR specialists to help you get everything to the point and cut through consistently. My conclusion for today, we'll come back to the fundamentals actually, before you dive into all the tips and everything, is that you can pick things here and there and you do it with the biggest passion, but to maximize the outcome, you need system and structure. And even with the best strategy in place that you are doing super well, growing, I believe that as a circular business, you need to review a strategy every 6 months, because the market changes, the technology changes so quickly. And so it's in a way, we look at, like, if you look at the screen on the left column, it's basically all these key actions for growth. And it can get very, very overwhelming. Even for us internally, we're doing other stuff. It just like, it takes a lot of time to get things right. But I do believe that with the right people in place and right strategy, you can achieve that. So I have listed a few supports that you can get. It's particularly for the sustainability space. Is number one, you yourself needs to be constantly learning, and you can't just pass your marketing work and your sales work to another person. At the end of the day, you want to master that before anyone else, before you can actually brief it to everyone else. AI language model is very useful these days, and I will actually vouch for Google's Gemini. And if you ask Gemini to actually, hey, put your marketing hat on, it could actually come up with really, really great content and strategy for you. And all you need, once you master those learning from yourself, you can use an AI model to help you. But you can't just copy, straight whatever they say, because a lot of the time is actually not great. And hire interns who are passionate about sustainability. And I do find, like, with our Circular Sydney project, it was actually all our editors were mostly interns, and they are just the new generation. They are just so passionate about the sustainability and the environmental issues, and they do want to make a change. And so you want to be able to sort of give that opportunity to those people and to really like co-create with them and nurture them as well. And the other thing I find is that when it comes to technical stuff, not so much building a website, but like fixing little things on your website, or, tagging Google, like tag manager, all those kind of things, you can actually go to like skill sharing platform like Fiverr, because there are a lot of great people up there as well. And the last thing is, get support from marketing specialists, which is very, very important to get things right and in a good structure. And lastly is, everything is just time. It's like, if we can have all the time in the world, we can actually reach our massive vision. But everything, time is money as well. So, but we do also need to have more empathy for ourselves as small business owners, and really just go through things at our own pace. There's only one competition, is ourselves. So my last slide is about, we are launching a small business digital marketing program next month, and you may find this helpful as well. We will have free contents, frameworks, one-on-one session, courses to empower small businesses owners who are determined to grow. So when it comes to achieving goals, I don't like to over promise, because I don't think it's realistic. Otherwise, you're gonna end up burning yourself up. So we will be looking at your data, your budget, and suggest the best way to grow sustainably. That's why we think 30% annual growth is the most realistic and sustainable way for any businesses to grow. And so if you'd like to chat about the project, here's my email. You can email me anytime. Also, please feel free to share any feedback, because I find it's a really beautiful and interesting space, this whole circular economy, and it needs a lot more like understanding of where we are at collectively and how can we grow from here and how can we actually support each other through this big transition. So thank you.
Great. And if anyone has questions for Donling, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. I would love to come back to something that you touched on is the customer/user experience and customer service, as I've always seen those things as marketing functions, right? Because it's much easier to retain current customers than it is to gain new customers. Like you're putting a lot more into getting the new customers than you would into just retaining an existing customer. So would you say that one of the first steps is really just making sure that that user experience works and that you sort of got everything you need in line before you're worrying about the other aspects of what we think of as traditional marketing?
Very good question. I think in terms of like the whole user experience, that's almost like non-negotiable. It doesn't matter whether you are trying to acquire customers or whether you are retaining customers. That fundamental is that's who you are, and that's that thing that you are selling to your customers. It's like, you design a mug, you want to make sure that people can drink, and therefore that whole experience, you want to make sure that that is usable and that achieve your goals as much as possible. Because at the end of the day, say, for example, when you are drawing traffic, like new traffic to, say, your website to convert something, you want to make sure that those traffic is going to land on your website, knowing what you're doing, and then take an action. So if you can't get your sort of core things right, then you're basically wasting money driving all this traffic to your whatever business. And same goes for like retaining your existing customers. If that whole digital channels is important for your existing customers, then definitely that is, again, non-negotiable. And yeah, so if that answers your question.
Yeah, and it also seems like it could have a negative impact. So if someone was relatively neutral and they have a negative experience, they've gone from neutral to negative instead of neutral to positive. And there's a saying that, you only have one chance to make a good first impression. So if you've lost that potential customer, you've probably lost them forever.
Mm-hmm. I think I think particularly with circular business, I feel like there's a lot more tolerance, because you are tapping into those customers that are actually really passionate about sustainability and wanting to make a change. And therefore they can actually tolerate to go like, okay, well, that little thing that is not done perfect, as long as it's not a big deal, like affecting that fundamental kind of issues, then it's okay. It's forgivable. And there is always a way to sort of, consistently like doing things to actually win back those customers as well. Because I do feel like, when at this early stage, as for circular businesses, there's just no perfection. And yeah, so they say like sustainability is it's a journey, not perfection. So um, I believe that that kind of empathy is also needed to be cultivated from a customer side. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, I think we're getting into being willing to admit, like, if something has gone wrong, like if an order wasn't what it was supposed to be. I'm always much more favorably inclined to companies that acknowledge that and fix
Mm,
it. And
mm,
that actually can turn a negative into a positive in that regard.
100%.
Yeah. And we're actually getting into a question that Jocelyn has just asked about, can you make some observations about word of mouth referrals? Because that's our biggest source of new customers other than Google organic search. And I'd like to encourage that channel to grow. And I mean, I would start with give your customers a good experience because that's why people recommend you. But do you
Yeah.
have any other recommendations for how you can encourage that word of mouth?
I was sitting on a postcard the other day, and I was asking this like a driver, and he's sort of like in the sort of baby boomer kind of generation. And I personally know about Polestar from the Circle Awards when they were sort of advertising there was as a partner. And so for me, that was the first time I know about them from a very innovative sort of organization. And so I was not saying that the baby boomers are not participating in that kind of events, but he was, very sort of very obvious, like not that type of people who will be involved in that space. So I asked him like, why are you not driving a Tesla and driving a Polestar? And he told me that this is so much a better car because it drives, it's like the safest EV in the world. And I asked him like, but how did you know about it? And he said, my friends told me about it. He said like, I said, have you seen any ads? Have you seen anything? He said, nah, you just, my family drives it, my friends drives it. So, and then I tell the next customers or next people to how great this car is. So it's like that word of mouth, I think, for that sort of innovative product is that early adopters, when they come together, they can be super, super powerful and strong. So in terms of word of mouth, is that, like you said, is that user experience needs to be the first, and your product is going to speak for itself. But the thing is that how can you actually enable those word of mouth channels to actually spread it for your products? And I think mostly it's really coming from experiment, to be honest. Like you want to sort of map out all these channels and go like, okay, these are the goals we want to achieve, and let's experiment it in sort of a time frame. So when we were doing our refill, what is quite interesting is that we actually give our customers, the everyday customers, sort of a small sachet for them to share with their neighbors and their friends. And what's interesting is that only, I would say, maybe 50% of customers return. And there is another group of customers, they go just, yeah, whatever. But what I find interesting is that through social media, when we were sort of first started, we see basically all the influencers who are in the change making space, and they all know each other. They all have like a shared sort of community of audience. So one will be seeing, Emma from Time Out posting our products, and then Miffy from like Good Food Guide also posting about it. So and then Liang posted about it. Like everyone sort of like has a little bit more kind of influential power, all talk about it. Then that basically drive a lot more kind of like powerful growth as well. So yeah, it's sort of an experiment.
And I think we're getting into an interesting area that's more influencer marketing. So we've got the word of mouth that is just people you actually know, but then there's also the people that other people trust. So, like you were saying, if they're affiliated with trusted brands like Time Out, or if they're, a foodie influencer or whatever it is. Um, and I think that gets complicated when we're talking about like influencer marketing and what's paid versus what's a genuine.
Mm,
I just really love this product because that authenticity is also part of why those people are influential. It's saying, well, they paid you to say that versus no, you just really like that and you just promote things that you like. So I think making sure that the people who are talking about it align with your brand and align with what you're doing is really important.
mm,
Any
definitely.
recommendations on how people can find the right influencers if they decide to go down that route?
Mm. Very good question. It's always like a debate between me and my clients. They go like, this influencer reach out to me and they have like millions of followers on TikTok, and should I engage him? Should I give him like, a free night of hotel and experiencing our place, and I always suggest to them, like exactly like you said, is these influencers like aligned with your brand, and not so much about their mission and vision and everything. Is that their audience, are they aligned with your business goals? I guess like, for example, I was, when we created a viral media, when Instagram first came out, we basically went viral around the world for our Instagram content, and therefore you draw a lot of audiences who love what you do, but not necessarily loving the business that you are promoting tomorrow. And so there is like a misalignment that I will always tell people who come to me for, hey, can you do this content for us? Is that and that's a very interesting perspective from my point of view as well, going through that whole journey of like being, an influencer, is that I will actually honestly tell my clients and say like, hey, my audience doesn't really align with your goal because they're all over the world and they will never come to you to buy your service. And so I think like for circular businesses, in terms of influencer marketing, is that you really need to pin down who is exactly so aligned with whatever you're trying to sell. And I also find, like I said before, having a small group of influencers who share the similar sort of audience circle is much more powerful than just getting one big influencer and talk about, your thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've touched on a really important point is that it's not enough to just have numbers. You need them to be the right people in terms of the
100%.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like the trick is more kind of understand who are these people. And that can be a bit of, smoke and mirror on social media, because everything can be bought these days. Or, just as long as you hack the algorithm is just going to bring you a lot of views and everything. And so how do you actually judge what is working and what is not working? And I find what is quite interesting is that you can actually study also from your competitors. If they engage, like say, influencer, are they working towards their brand goal, or are, all those kind of things you can actually experiment a little bit to kind of find insights.
And I'd like to switch to something that you touched on earlier about tapping into positive emotions instead of negative emotions, because obviously a lot of the time we have to start by talking about this is the problem, but then we can switch that into, but here is part of a solution that you can be part of. And I think part of why telling people they can be part of the solution is largely effective because you are empowering people in a situation where people largely feel powerless. Like we all know climate change is a big problem, but it's always that question of like, okay, but what can I do to actually help? Like, what am I actually empowered to do? And so I think that's part of why that's a really strong emotion. But are there other emotional aspects that you can bring to this that you would recommend in terms of persuading people through that emotional component?
I will actually tap into more kind of the immediate emotions. So like, with everyday consumers, what are the things that they are experiencing and how can we empower them? Same goes for, like corporate partners, like, whoever partners that you want to reach out to, what's their emotion like? Yeah, we all have this much bigger sort of vision altogether, but their immediate sort of goals and desire that, for example, in a business you want to grow. So can you, instead of like talking about, hey, we can solve this problem, can we actually talk about, hey, we can actually grow your business? And that immediately tap into like people's biggest desire as well. I feel like someone told me this thing, and I don't know where's the source of it as well. Is that that I think there are three things that people would be willing to pay for your service or product. One is that money, how to increase sales and all those things. How can you make more money? Second is I think health. I can't remember the third. Something along that line. That is like those kind of problems that are so close to ourselves. That should be sort of the short-term thing, and then your bigger vision of empowering people, getting people together. That is almost like the cherry on the top to actually push a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we're getting into the empathy component of putting yourself in the audience's place and saying, what are they getting out of this? Because too often I think that people take sort of a carnival barker approach of, you know, come do what I want you to do, do what I want you to do, do what I want you to do, rather than having a conversation about here's how I can help you if you
Mm.
use my services.
Mm, mm. Yeah, definitely. And that really comes down to, again, audience strategy, like how deeply do you know your audience, the one that are super aligned with you, and just go for it.
Great. Well, I think we might wrap up a few minutes early. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, but thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you to Don Ling for a wonderful conversation. This has been really interesting and I hope very useful for people